All right. So somebody asked me a very famous question. And the question was, what was the question? How do I know if God exists or does God exist altogether? And the answer is that I don't believe that God exists. I know He exists. Because a matter of belief is not necessarily based on a fact. I just believe things. I don't necessarily know that it's a fact. Knowing something is completely different. For example, without getting much into that, because that's a different subject altogether. The scientific theory is that the world is about 14.5 billion years old. It's a theory. Jewish belief is that they know when the world was created. They can actually point out to you the day the world was created and the order of events. But that's a different topic altogether. How do I know that God exists? Well, I do know that I am here. Whether I'm a part of a big computer program or something like that, that's irrelevant. But I am here. I feel things. I am things. I know things. I am here. I know that my father is my father. I know my grandfather is my father's father. And so on and so forth. I could basically take you back, more or less from both sides of my parents, without a doubt, all the way back to 1395 in Spain. I can even point out certain synagogues in Spain that my ancestors' names is engraved on the walls of the synagogues. So it goes all the way back. I know I am a Jew by fact, not by theory. And as a descendant of Jewish people, there were in, if I go backwards, Israel, Turkey, Saloniki, in Greece, Spain, and so on and so forth. I can tell you where we came from. And that goes all the way back. If you're going to tell me that, for example, the fact that my father is my father or my grandfather is my grandfather is just a theory, it's a made-up thing, I'll refer you to a shrink that I know that might actually give you good services. So now, I know that I'm a Jew and there's an unbroken chain. I received my smicha from my two rabbis, that they received it. I can tell you who did they receive their ordination from, and who they received it from, and so on and so forth. Basically an unbroken rabbinical chain of about 120 something, 127 generations, all the way back to Har Sinai. Some people think that came Ezra Sofer, Ezra the scribe, and actually wrote up the whole entire Torah. Well, let me tell you that. If he did this, he's probably the greatest man ever walked the face of the earth. Not only that, knowing Jews, they would not be able to swallow such a lie. All of a sudden, to make up, a bunch of people in Babylonia and just, oh, we are, they'll tell them, what are you talking about? My grandfather came from the galut of Nebuchadnezzar. So he could not come up with a story. Or that my great grandfather was in Babylonia. We never in Israel. So the whole concept that the Torah is made up is quite foolish. And what did happen in Har Sinai? Well, there was a guy named Moses, also known as Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu. There were Jews there gathering in the mountain, and there was an unbelievable sight of divine revelation at Mount Sinai, where the Torah was given to Am Yisrael. We all know the story. Very nice firework, a whole ordeal over there. And why am I referring to Mount Sinai? Just gotta tell you the following. I know a guy that lived in my neighborhood, actually two people, very reliable people. I mean, really reliable people. Now I'm talking about something like 25 years ago. They drove somewhere in the North Shore of Long Island, and they saw an unbelievable sight. They saw an unbelievable thing up in the sky. They pulled out the cars to the side. They stepped out of the car. There's two guys, their wives, and then it turned out to be another 5 or 6 cars that saw the same thing, including 2 police cars. Pull up to the side, and they saw this giant UFO. I asked him, I said, Yossi, how big was that? He said to me, imagine the size of Shea, at the time it was Shea Stadium, up in the sky. It was crazy. We were standing there, it was before cell phone, pictures and so on and so forth. And we were astonished. Since that point, people say, what you been smoking? So if I told you I saw a UFO, you would tell me, listen, somebody laced your bourbon, I don't know. Okay, 2 people saw it. Okay, well, you probably smoked together. Mm-hmm. He said to me, to his great astonishment and amazement and disappointment, there was not even a mention. He said, the fact that there were police people there, they saw it together with us. We were all standing there, like 15, 16 people standing there looking at this thing, and it disappeared. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden. He said, I've never seen anything like this. Now, this is a guy that was in the army. He was in the Israeli Air Force. He was an Israeli paratrooper. The other guy was in tanks. I mean, this is not just... And yet people look at them like... Now, what will happen if I'll tell you, listen, I saw a UFO. I was walking down Fifth Avenue. All of a sudden, I look at UFO. You're going to tell me right away, did anybody else see it? And I'll tell you, I don't know, nobody seemed to see it. Okay, maybe you should take a little nap. What happened if 10 people see it? Well, I don't know, maybe you guys saw something, but you confuse it. But what happened if you see a UFO, and now 500,000 people see it? What happened if you go, let's say not even 500,000 people, let's say you go to the Meadowland, to Giant Stadium, in the middle of a NFL, game, when the stadium is packed with 80,000 people, and then everybody sees something. Now, could you deny it? Mm-hmm. You can't deny it. The uniqueness of Har Sinai, Matan Torah, giving the Torah Mount Sinai, was that nowhere before nor after has any group of people experienced together such a revelation of a divine presence as it happened over there. In most religions, it's usually one individual, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, whether it's Buddhism. It's one individual that had a revelation, and then he pushed on his agenda, and he claimed to be speaking to God. But at never before nor after, a whole nation. We are talking about a very specific number. We're talking about a number of 600,000 people from the men from the age of 20 to 50. So therefore, there were 600,000 people. Then would approximate, let's say, with children and younger and women and so on and so forth. Maybe we're talking about a total group of like 3 million people. You can't deny at that event, that's a important event in human history where 600,000 men from the age of 20 to 50, which include again a number of about 3 million people, had claimed to have a divine experience where God spoke to them. But the Gemara says it was not only them, because even the nations knew, the rest of the nations knew what happened in Har Sinai. Truth of the matter is that we know that based on the Gemara, the other nations knew it as well, as much as the other nations knew of the splitting of the Red Sea. So to all these people that claim that God is an invention, what do you do with that? Well, you could dismiss everything. As I said to you before, you could dismiss the fact that you're even alive, because they would argue with you that you are part of a giant dream of like a alternate universe. You are some molecule. You could deny everything, but you cannot ignore the fact. The whole concept of doubting if God exists or doesn't exist is just an excuse to do what you want rather than submit yourself to the will of God. Now, it doesn't make a difference if you're a Jew or you're a non-Jew. That's what it is. You got to admit that there is a God because it's a fact. If you're going to say, well, I don't believe my father is my father, right? I don't believe my father is my father. Someone said, what are you talking about? Look at the DNA is identical. No, you could say whatever you want. I don't believe in that. Or I denounce my own father. You can denounce God. I mean, it's a fact. God is more real than we are. So if you ask me, do I believe that God exists? I tell you more than that. I know God exists. Because of this unbroken chain of father to son, of father to son, father to son, all the way back. Therefore, Ezra the scribe, could not have come out of nowhere and invent something based on some folklore stories and so on and so forth. Because people would say to him, what are you talking about? What do you think? Today it's like today they tell you, the stories that even if the biggest president will come and tell you some stories that, we came from the moon. What are you talking about? We're Americans. You can't come up with a story as long as you have people from that. That's the problem with the Holocaust. That's why many people try to deny the Holocaust. But they can deny as much as they want. Go to Auschwitz and go speak to the people that were there. That's why it's important to spread the word of what happened in the Holocaust, to never forget. So it would not happen again. And we never forget what happened in Har Sinai, so we would not forget, and nobody could deny it. That's the thing. Now, whether you want to deny God's existence or not, that's up to you. But it doesn't change the fact that He's more real than all of us. And since you know that there is God, so therefore you act accordingly. Gentiles have their own role in creation. Jews have their own roles in creations. There's no contradiction between the two. And we all humans are there to serve God. Each one to his own task. As much as in the Jews, we have Levites, we have Kohanim, we have Israel. So they're Jews, they're Gentiles. Everybody has a job. And we all need to come together for the glory of God. So does God exist? Without a doubt. How do I know it? Do I know that I have a father? I was not born out of the Holy Spirit. I was born from a father and a mother. And there is an order to the universe. And as such, God exists. Again, you could be a fool and denounce it, but you're no more than a fool. It's denying God's existence is like believing the kids are being brought to this world by storks in the cabbage patch. And with people like that, you can't really have an argument, or as much as people will think that the world is flat. So, for me, it's amazing that people would dismiss people that think that the world is flat, but yet everybody will be apologetic, even if you believe in God, and you know that there is a God, still you'll be going to become apologetic that there is a God. No, I don't think so. I think you're a greater fool. You're less of a fool believing the world is flat than believing that God does not exist. Have a wonderful, blessed day.